I made an improvised harness and took it up and down a multi-pitch climb. How'd I make it, and how did it perform? Hello everyone, I'm Jason. When going out climbing, I've forgotten sunscreen before. I've forgotten my phone. I even forgot my rock shoes once. I don't forget stuff often, but over many, many years of climbing, these things happen. But I had never left my climbing harness at home. Well, it happened recently, and I didn't realize it until after the 90-minute drive to the new crag we were wanting to check out. There were 2 other parties at the crag, and I asked them if they happened to have a spare harness. Unsurprisingly, they did not, so I was left with the choice of heading back home or fashioning something serviceable for the day. Here's what I made, and the mental process I used to determine that it was good enough to go up and down a multi-pitch route with my son. 3 big caveats here. The first is this was obviously unplanned, so I was limited to using the materials I had with me. For instance, I don't typically carry thick tubular webbing, which you will often see in makeshift harness construction. The second is that while you may have seen a short we've done, there's a link in the description, where I used the climbing rope end to make an improvised harness, I didn't choose to do so in this case. There were 2 reasons. The original intention of the day's trip was to introduce my son, Cade, to some twin rope management while he was on lead. This is an important skill for us because we climb as a team of 3 so often. Because of that, I only brought 40-meter twin ropes. I didn't want to use a lot of rope length up by turning it into a harness. And I also knew we were going to be doing a lot of rappelling, so I wanted to access the rope ends. Sure, we can set rappels with an equivocation hitch that doesn't require either climber to come out of the rope. There's another link in the description to a video that shares that technique too. But my son was already going to be exposed to enough new and newish things today, and coupled with the former reason to not use the rope as a harness, I decided against it.
Yep.
The last caveat is that I am in no way advocating using anything other than a purpose-built, commercially available climbing harness for climbing. I wasn't thrilled by my mistake, but my personal risk assessment led me to conclude that I, only me, could be safe enough. Here's how I made the harness. I started by using my quad-length runner and doubling it over. Remember my lack of tubular webbing? I wanted to add some width to what would become the leg loops so that the skinny 8mm slings I had wouldn't dig into my thighs as much. From here, I made a simple diaper sling by making sure the bar tack was in the middle of my back, then grabbing the set of strands at my back that didn't have the bar tack and pulling it down and then back up between my legs. Then I clipped all 3 loops with a locking carabiner. I decided to make this attachment point redundant. The sling is pulling the carabiner in many directions, and it is also the potential failure point of the system. So I had 2 locking carabiners of the same make and model that I oriented to be opposite and opposed. Now though, I decided to build out the harness a bit more. Besides comfort being a problem, the other major safety downside of the diaper sling is that the connection point is lower and could end up below your center of gravity in the wrong circumstances. And I didn't have open-ended webbing like you need to make a Swiss seat. So I took a double runner, again positioned the bar tack at the middle of my back, and ran the double runner through the strand of the diaper sling that was at my back to help hold the leg loops up. Now, I wrapped the double runner around my waist and connected the ends together with a bowline. The bowline had tiny tails, but I wanted that because I used the bowline loop and the tail loop as an improvised belay loop. I made sure the 2 loops were equal length and then clipped them into my opposite and opposed carabiners on the diaper sling. Finally, I needed to tie in with 2 ropes, and I didn't want to tie the ropes into the harness directly where, under tension, cutting could happen. Because it had just become ice climbing season, and I often take out some standard lockers for double-gated lockers that resist freezing, you can watch yet another video on this topic by following another link. I happen to have a Gravel Clipsidra S, which besides being a double-gated locker, also has a keeper gate to hold its orientation so that it can't cross-load. I used that carabiner as a makeshift hardpoints substitute, and it became dedicated to my rope tie-ins. So now I could add in another locker on my double belay loop for anything else like lead belaying or rappel extension and the like. What I ended up with was a harness that was at least double strands at every point, so any knots in the system that reduced the material strength would be offset by doubling over. You can watch a whole video about knots and slings that goes into this in more detail. Yes, another link in the description. And I was also redundant to the connection point carabiners. It proved to be fine. Yes, it dug in a bit when hanging to belay or on rappel, but if I kept the waist above my hip bones, it wasn't something that was distracting in the moment. I wouldn't want to do multiple days climbing in it, but this one day was just fine. Got a good improvised solution story? Tell it to us in the comments. Thanks for watching this video. Please like, subscribe, and share if you want to support us. For more information, you can go to our website at www.shortguysbetaworks.com. You can watch that video I mentioned that is, I guess, kind of an improvised solution on the equivocation hitch, or you can check out our entire rock climbing safety series. We'll see you next week and keep on getting more out of that big outside.